Are you tired of trying to live in a box? Feeling like somehow on the journey, you knew where you were going only to arrive and realize how deeply influenced you've been by all the things around you. Have you been there? Do you know what I'm talking about? And you're a super successful woman, and yet you sometimes find that you show up in these places and think, how did I get here? How is it that I'm not even sure what my purpose is anymore? And somehow I got swept up in all of the things, right? All of the rules and all the places that I was kind of mentally thinking I had to go and do to somehow create that impact and legacy. So if any of this applies to you, then hi, my name is Jennifer Zenz Olson. I'm the founder and owner of Laughing Lotus Wellness. I'm a transformational purpose coach and expert. And what I do is work with brilliant women just like you who are in a place in their lives and realizing that they might need to make a lane change, which is what I call it when we kind of arrive somewhere. You go, you know what? This once was really working, or maybe it never did, and I'm successful at it, but I'm not feeling it. And what I would really like to do is be able to have both success and purpose and feel like I'm leaving that impact and clarity that I was meant to leave. So that's who I work with. And one of the first things we do is get clarity, right? This is one of the, like I say, clarity is queen. And so it's one of my very first steps I love to work when I'm working with women to dive into that awareness, that self-awareness, like right out the gate. And so today we're going to talk about, over the years of working with clients, thousands and thousands and thousands of hours, is what do you do to step into your nature, right? So all of us are wired differently. And today we're going to be talking about the rebel soul, which is like one of my very favorite. I'm telling you what, this is like one of those things that legitimately like lights my soul on fire. And so I absolutely love this idea and notion of being a rebel. So for me, and for those of you that follow, you know that I love acrostics and acronyms and things like that stand for something else, right? So today, as I sat down and I was starting to kind of think about what I really wanted to convey, there's a vlog up this week that I already posted on Tuesday that's about living in rebellious kind of mindset. And so there's a couple of tips and tools I give there, and you can go back and catch those on my website at laughinglotuswellness.com. Feel free to show up there and peruse. I've got tons and tons of tools and tricks for you for living a purposeful life. But I wanted today to kind of like expand on it. So I was like, okay, what does rebel mean? To me, rebel means resisting the excuse to be aligned with everyone else's life expectation. Okay. So I'm going to do it one more time. It's a mouthful. I'm looking at it because I just created it. In case you're like, wow, she's know her shit, because I just created it. So resisting the excuse to be aligned with everyone else's life expectations. So, right. REBEL. And so I thought about, the moments in my life, and I'm going to share a story because it's funny. Well, hopefully, I think it's hilarious. Now it's funny. At the time it was happening, it wasn't so funny. But a time where I was a rebel and it got me in trouble. So first of all, I want to say where the rebel was born. And I think it's always really neat to kind of listen to people's stories. And so I want to know when yours was born. I'm guessing that you have one in you. I think we all do. Mine is an eternal 17-year-old with her hands on her hips and her hip is cocked and she's kind of giving everyone the finger. I'm just going to be honest. That's kind of the vision I have of her. Why? Is she trying to be rude? No. At 17, I had a pretty significant family trauma. And so at 17, there was a part of me that was really going through something deeply painful. And so I think sometimes in those traumatic moments, we sort of design armor and defense mechanisms. Well, I know we do. I shouldn't say I think we do. I know we do. I worked in it for 20 plus years. So like, I know that we do these things. And so at 17, having to go through something really painful, one of the things that I did was kind of grow this internal armor. And what it was like, you will not get in. And right, you think about back to 17 and it's a time where you're already self-conscious and like you're uncomfortable and like you're figuring out who you are and you're trying to adult, but you're still a kid and you're in this weird space. And so then to have a trauma that disrupts kind of that entire journey meant I grew up right away. And then two, it was pretty public what happened. And so it was like all eyes on me. And so the solution was to create this armor that people couldn't kind of reach in and hurt me anymore because I was already hurting. And so she's kind of in there and she's saucy. She's saucy. My internal 17-year-old rebel is saucy. And so sometimes when I go to show up to something, I know her energy is there. It's like, oh, and it's not like an actual part of myself, but like, you know what I'm saying? It's that part of my journey, that story shows up and she's like dukes up, right? So she's like really sturdy. She's like a good warrior. She's got a lot of strength. Sometimes she needs to tone it down. So some of my work has been in helping like, okay, settle down there, 17-year-old, we got this. So I love the story of where the first rebel of my nature was really born was when I was 17. So I want you to fast forward. And so now I've, gone to school, went and got my bachelor's degree in social work. And now I'm going to find my first professional job. And so my first professional job was with a company in Minnesota, which I will not name. And it's because I'm going to tell a story about it. And so I became a employment case manager in a very small town. And so I worked for this company, and my job was to work with people with significant mental health issues. So we worked with people with severe and persistent mental health issues, and we helped them keep and find and keep jobs, right? And so I was all the time in the community and helping support clients with their mental health issues, but also making sure that their managers and their supervisors and staff were working in conjunction with them. So it was a really, really cool opportunity to grow into this field of social work. So super grateful for it. But what happened was, a piece of it was there was also work in house that we did. And so our CEO would be pressuring us to pressure our clients to work more hours. And so, right, so it kind of came from up here and shit rolls downhill, so to speak. And so we would get this pressure to like, oh, but your super significantly depressed client needs to come in and work more hours. And I'm like, they can't. And it was really ishy for me. And it was this really icky boundary, like an integrity, ethical, like super uncomfortable. I'm just going to be really honest. And I'm fresh faced. I'm green around the gills. And I'm like, new to all things social work and super fiery, passionate. And so what happened was we went to an event, and despite all of this, we need to make more money. Your clients need to work more hours. That it was so disingenuous, and it felt really icky to me. And we went to this big, I want to say it was a holiday thing, and they granted the CEO this incredibly ridiculous, nice leather chair with like a plaque on the back. And I was like, okay, so let me get this straight. We can afford a really nice, fancy leather chair for this person with their plaque on the back. And I'm having to go and pressure people with significant depression who can barely get off of their couch every day to go to work more hours. And so what happened is, and I don't even remember how this all unfolded, the staff where I was at our little satellite office had started talking, and we were pretty uncomfortable with how things were going, and it felt pretty yucky. So somehow in all of this, the CEO hears that I made some comment, and it all hell broke loose at our satellite. I mean, someone lost their job, it was bad. It was bad. So I will say this. So I got talked to, I got written up. It's the only time in my life I've ever been written up at work in my life, because I'm actually a really good employee. Like, I'm like, you tell me what to do, I do the thing, very, very that way. Until this is always until you push into my value set about supporting and loving and protecting clients, and then all hell breaks loose and everything goes out the window. And I really felt strongly that those clients that we were serving, that wasn't the right solution, was to ask them to do more, and yet we were being pressured to do so. It really felt incongruent and yucky to me. Okay, out of alignment. So I got written up. It was an awful experience, and at the time I was like, oh my gosh, am I going to lose my job? It was hard to find a job because I was new. And ended up being fine, but someone did lose their job in the journey, which was a horrible thing, because actually she was so full of integrity and loved our clients. And so there was a lot of political stuff going on. Let's just put it that way. Okay. There's a lot of political stuff going on behind the scenes, which was a shame, because the person who was really in charge was phenomenal. And so all these things kind of, broke down and whatever. And I knew I was not staying forever anyway. I was on my way to my master's degree. So I was like, bye, Felicia. So it's just a good stopping point along my journey. And so I left, but that rebellious nature definitely came out there as well. So it showed up. She starts at 17 and then she just progresses. And that's probably my mid-20s. And I'm already getting in trouble because I'm opening my mouth and I'm like, okay, well, this is the incongruency I see. I had to do it in community mental health, right? In community mental health, I had a completely full caseload. And we were intended to take new clients every single week. And I mean, like every single week. And we would meet someone and they would be potentially suicidal. Nice to meet you. And I have to schedule you out 3 weeks because my schedule is full. And so I had to argue for that. Like, that is not ethical care. That's not the right way to see people. We found a creative workaround, which I don't want to share because I would never want to get somebody in trouble who hooked me up. We found a creative workaround because it wasn't good for the clients. It was like, this is not about the clients, right? I mean, I could sit and talk about this. What I really wanted to do though was share the story. So where does your rebellious nature show up? I see Sue in here and I know Sue's animals. So I'm just going to tell you, right? I'm going to call because she is like literally, I call her Saint Francesca of Assisi because she's like the animal whisperer. So like she's in here and I know her heart. So I'm going to just like say, like, I know one of her rebellious natures would be if it came down to something for the safety and wellness of an animal, that she would be in your grill. Like, right. So all of us are ready for something different. Where does your rebellious nature show itself? Mine was always client care. Mine was client care. Do not mess with the client care. That was really something that would piss me off. So what are you passionate about? What do you think you'd be willing to like, it doesn't matter what it is, I'm going to say something about this. And that was really honestly, and here's the neat thing, right? And I want you to begin to make these connections. This is what I get fired up about. If I hadn't had these really wretched experiences with feeling like I was working with people that really asked me to do unethical things that did not feel good and congruent to my being at all, or my work, or my clients, I don't know that I would have been as prompted as I was to own my own practice. Because when I went into my own practice, I'm like, no more. I got to schedule. I'm going to make sure there's always time for the people when they need it. They're not going to call on me if they have a crisis on me, like that's going to be 4 weeks out. That is not how this business is going to run. So the mission and the energy of that entire birth of that business was about all of these stops along the way. And so for me, I think what's really neat is when we look back, you're also being given always, right? So you're being tucked into your purpose and you're having experiences to keep you on your journey. But then also you're learning the lessons that are going to allow you to step fully into who you need to be to show up to the world to create whatever impact you're going to leave. And so for me, it was really like all of these moments where I was like, I feel gross. You're asking me to do something that makes me feel gross. And I am supposed to be here to protect and sort of hold space for these people that are many of them were vulnerable. And so I was like, I can't do that. That feels right. So I want you to go in and look for those spaces. Where do you feel super lit up and like fired up and dukes come up? And it's like, that is not going to happen on my watch. This is not going to happen on my watch. And so those are always intentional. They're not accidents for each of us, like how we show up and how we feel about it. That's not an accident. And so I want you to tap into that space and imagine, can you be a rebel with resisting the excuse to be aligned with everyone else's life expectations? Right? So many of us show up and it's easy that I can have a sense of something, but even in that moment of the CEO, writing me up and talking me, condescendingly talking to me about what I did, it didn't even examine the why. Right? But his expectation was you just follow my rule. Okay. And I'll follow your rule when our rules make sense. And if you're saying that we're supposed to be doing this, but then you're telling us to do this, those two things don't align. I wish I'd had a more powerful conversation with that person in that moment, because that was really what was happening was the staff were trying to hold in and protect the clients. So it wasn't just sassy nastiness. It was protection. Right. And so I want you to think about that. And it can make us really unpopular. It can make us really, right? So, and like I said, I've always been a good employee, do the things. And so when I branched off to do my private practice, I was not super popular. 3 of us left at one time to do a business. So, I mean, we were not their favorites. I'm going to be honest. No one did it to be malicious. I get why that was it was a big upheaval for them. Like, I get that. I respect that. I can roll with that. And I didn't want to work under that pressure anymore. I didn't want to. And so I think, right. And that's, you're leaving and you can't tell the clients that you're leaving and going somewhere. The hell I can't. Those clients don't show up here because it's this mental health center. They show up because they're getting client care that they feel connected to through each therapist that's sitting in the office with them. That's where the connection is. And right. And so it was like just one of those things where I'm like, friends, we have to understand how we show up here. These people are going to come with me and they get the choice. And I sat with every single client. And I want to be real with you. When I left, I was congruent about it. I'm like, I won't just tell them where I'm going, but I have a responsibility clinically to these clients to give them the choices. So I said, you can stay here with a client or a clinician I will gladly refer you to. You can stop doing what your services are unless I, recommend otherwise, which then I would give recommendations or I want you to know where I'm going, but I don't want you to feel any obligation to do anything. 95% of the time, they wouldn't even let me start talking about it. They'd be like, where are you going? because that was the connection, right? So we want to think about that. So the expectation is like, was in that space, like, these are our people of this business. Like, no, they're not. They're not here because of the building, because of the business. They're here because of connection. And so sometimes it can make us unpopular. I mean, the ending there, we gave them quite a bit of notice, was not the most comfortable. I'm going to be honest. We duked it out, right? This is what we're going to do. We're just going to do it. We're going to get through it. We'll be fine. And we did. And so there was a lot of pressing into the resistance, right? I mean, I feel like a lot of what rebellious nature really looks and feels like is sometimes pressing into spaces that make people kind of pissed off, or it makes us uncomfortable, right? Because we're going to have to expand and we're going to push into places that people have ideas about. I hear a lot of women, I want to talk about this for a minute. I hear a lot of women that come to me, and this is how they arrive to me, because they know my story of leaving private practice, and I was super successful and had this great thing going. And I was like, I'm leaving and I'm going to be doing something else. And everybody's like, what? Like records scratching. Like, what do you mean you're leaving? Why are you going to be leaving something that works, right? And so it's talking through all of these ideas, like, why, when it looks like you've got something, would you need to make a lane change? This is where I really want to get people moving in their minds in this direction, because what I want you to understand is you are not being called on accident, right? You're never being called to make a lane change or do something different in your life on accident. And really what happens is sometimes we can end up in a space where we get a lot of resistance from people. And people go, what? Why would you leave being a nurse? I'm going to use an example. You super successful, have a great reputation at your company. You've been there for 10 years, 15 years. You've got, just a wonderful situation at work. You've got some retirement. You've got, right, respect. You've got, so why in the hell would you ever leave, right? And this is what I hear a lot of women speak to. Or they've got a really successful business. So like, I kind of want to segue into something different. And all of even my family and friends are like, what? But you made it. You're here. Why would you need to do something different? Because it doesn't feel right anymore. Because what once felt really good and aligned to me no longer feels really good and aligned to me. And if I'm waking up and I'm no longer in that spiritual space of loving what I do, something's got to give. And so this is where I really want you to be a rebel. And it's bravery. And maybe I should have made that the B word in there, of the rebel, right? But resisting that excuse to be aligned with everyone else's life expectations is, there's people can come up to us and go, but like, why? Sisters, brothers, partners, business partners, people that mean well in our lives, they even really truly love us, but they're like, what are you doing? I can't tell you how many women their loved ones sometimes are like, but you've already got it. You've already arrived. Why would you want to start over again? Or why would you need to do something different? This is already going so well, but that's going so well from the outside looking in. So the rebellious nature is about bravery. It's about listening to that call that you get, that you need to be moving into a different space. And so, and your purpose doesn't necessarily change, right? This is one of those really powerful like realizations for people, is like, your purpose, one, you got to be clear about what your purpose is, right? Because that's a big key to like making these lane changes and feeling really aligned. That's number one. That's like kind of like base number one, way back here, of the work that we always want to be doing. But I do want to say, like, you have to keep moving forward and stepping into these spaces. It's really important. So one, in the comments, tell me, where's your rebellious space? Mine was client care. You can see it through and through. Mine is protecting the what's the kind of like person that's the, low dog, like the, right, the underdog. Like, I'm all about, like wanting to protect, take care of the underdog, the person that's not being seen. I love justice. And so a big energetic space around that. But like, truly, I would say, like, not just that, but like client care. Like, I was like, client care, like always about customer service. And like, what is the person I'm working with? What's their experience? That's so big for me. And so I really want you to think about, where would you step into, because the passion's so big that you might just open up your mouth and say something, even if it got you in some trouble, even if it meant, getting a little bit of a talking to or written up, or been there, done that. So I love telling the story, because it's like, oh, I was there, my friends. I don't preach about this stuff and talk about it and then not step up. Like, no, trust me, been there, done that, have made some not super friendly like relationships where people kind of would get pissed because I would step into something. And Sue said, my mom still doesn't know I quit my job to pursue voice acting, right? Sue, this is what I'm getting at. So in your case, this was something that that you're likely to have that conversation, right? And have it come back in a way that's like, why would you do that? And here's the thing, again, I don't want to talk to someone's intentions, because I know sometimes people have really good intentions for us and it just doesn't look right. And sometimes people don't really necessarily have the intentions for us that we wish they did. But I want to say, right, that's a perfect example of someone who, when you know that you had a calling to do this and you know it, right? You know in your soul, which is what I love, because like I know, you know in your heart that that's what you were called to do, at least in part, right? And so if you're called to do that, what we want is yes people, and what we want is to be able to stand in our rebellious spirit if they can't say yes for us. So some of the big work around this, and this is a toughie, and I'm going to say this out loud, be really, really honest about it, is sometimes it looks like being incredibly brave in the face of moments and places and with people who we really wish got it and can't. And so that's where that bravery comes in. It's like, you know what? If my mom doesn't get it, if my dad doesn't get it, if my partner doesn't get it, I hear a lot of that, right? From, just like I said, from really successful people, and that know that they're getting called to do something that, like, yep, this is what I've always dreamt of doing this thing. You have to continue to do that and garner up that rebel spirit, that rebel soul. That's what we're really talking about today. And so that's been kind of the idea this week, was thinking outside the box. And then I started thinking outside the box, and I was like, well, that's really kind of rebelliousness, right? It's always been, someone doesn't get to tell me how to do my work. I'm going to show up and do my work the way that each person needs it, which is why prescribed work has never been my thing. Okay. But this is where I want to go. Exactly what Sue is mentioning here is that you're going to have people that are going to show up and go, what? You had something. You were already doing something. You were already successful. Or look at what you had. And like, you just have to have that rebellious soul come up and go, this isn't for me. This is this situation, this conversation, this energy coming from somebody else, not for me. And you got to push that boundary outward. Hell to the no. Hell to the no. Because that person does not understand where your soul's trying to go. If their answer is you've already got it good, and why would you do that? If they can't hear you, bye-bye. Okay. And then Sue said, I once rescued a turtle from a drug dealer in Charleston. I caught him kicking her and stood there fighting with him until he finally gave up, carried her to the stream and feared getting capped. Totally. But look, see, this is, and so I love it. I love that you're in here. That's such a beautiful, like synchronicity, because I know Sue and I adore her and her soul. So like, yeah, right. So these are moments like that's a perfect example. Like, I showed up. I could have gotten my ass handed to me, right? My dog got attacked on the street. I was right in the center of it. I'm not even this dog. I saw it coming. It wasn't leashed. There was no owner. It got out in the neighborhood. It just reminds me of the story, Sue. And it was coming at us, and I thought, oh shit. And I had my dog in a leash. My family's like just a little bit behind me. I'd gotten out the door. I think people were putting their shoes on, right? So I was just a little ahead of everybody. So I had my rescue dog, who's like a mid-size, pretty petite, 40-pound lab pit mix. And then my Shih Tzu was coming down the road with my family. And this dog, God, it was sniffing my dog. And I was like, something's bad. I don't even know how I knew it. Isn't that so weird? And all of a sudden that dog started biting my dog, and there was snarling, and it was freaking out. And I was trying to hold my dog and protect her. And I was like pushing this dog away. I was livid when that person finally came up and got their dog. I was like, Jesus Christ. I was like in their face. I was like, what is happening right now? They're like, we didn't know it got out, bro. I mean, accidents happen, but they did not own that whole situation. It pissed me off so bad. But I understand, don't even. But you, Sue, have a heart of gold when it comes to animals. And that's one of the things that I will always, just when I think of you, it's always one of the things that I just always comes to my heart, is like, I just see you with like every single kind of animal. You're such an animal lover and protector. And it's such a sweet part of who you are. Thanks, sister. Yeah, I was pissed. I was not nice. I was not a nice neighbor that day. A whole other story. I seriously think the police should have done something about it, because I really do believe that dog was a danger. Okay. I will not go there today, but I'm just going to say that dog was a danger. Because my dog did nothing to provoke anything. So that was a really ishy experience. So, but I love your soul about this animal protection and wanting what's good for you. And so even when we can't do things like tell a parent, where it's like, yeah, I've got this big dream and this is where I'm going. And it starts like this. You know, every single dream you have, and I want to say this really clearly, every single dream you have starts this big. Every single dream, right? So I'll guarantee you the Michael Jordans of the world and the Lady Gagas of the world, and right, I mean, the Gwyneth Paltrows or whoever, I'm just throwing people out that are coming to mind, right? Like, they didn't start off with stardom and celebrity. They didn't start off super successful, whatever the hell it was they did. That's not how it works. We start off in itsy bitsy minor little steps. You know, one of my itsy bitsy minor steps was finally telling my business, even when I became a contractor at the therapy practice, I was leaving. But it started with a dream. It started with a seed. Laughing Lotus Wellness was this little itsy bitsy idea that came from a completely crisis-based situation, right? I mean, like crazy, right? And so I want you to really think about your most beautiful moments are going to start this big. And so to give yourself space and also to celebrate that, right? I think that's something that along the way, I was just talking to another woman today about this, like how her family gets pissed if she celebrates something that she's achieving, one of her family members. And I'm like, that's just celebrate. It's not like I'm amazing. It's saying, I hope to inspire other people that I started with something this big of an idea. And now look at what it's turned into. That's what it's doing. It's about inspiring other people. It's not about being a jerk and like arrogant. Like you're not like, hey, I'm awesome. Like there is nothing I'm going to say to you. It's like, I'm awesome. It's like, hey, look at this incredible gift I've been given. And I got there because I had a dream, a seed, and then I had all these people and situations, the right things show up to allow me to step into that. That's a lot of miracles happening, right? Think about that, right? So to give yourself space, like you might start as a little itsy bitsy seed, your journey, and you have to hang on to that and you have to nurture it and you have to be excited about it. And that's having a rebel soul. Because the world will tell you, oh, that small side gig, well, you know, and that one thing you did, well, you know, right? That's everyone else's expectations. And so I want you to so fiercely grab onto this idea that being a rebel is resisting the excuse to be aligned with everyone else's life expectations. And that's really what it is. I could have done a whole month on this. I perhaps should have, but that's fine. So for now, we'll just tap into this and we'll circle back because we always do, right? We always circle back into content. But I wanted to get in here and really talk about this and share those stories. And right. And so because I think that it's so important to listen to the message that you are being given for what you're meant to do, how you're meant to do it. And to really like, you have to stay there. And it's hard because you're going to get resistance and you're going to get people that don't get it. And you're going to have people say like, that's crazy, or that doesn't make any sense, or who do you think you are? Right. And like, that just brings a whole nother, my 17-year-old's on the inside giving people the finger when they do that kind of shit to me. I'll tell you right now. Right. So that's as she pops in, she's like, got her, she's like, hell to the no, that 17-year-old. So strangely, and we're not going to spend a lot of time in this, trauma can actually help you be a rebel. And it can actually really be a springboard for some of the most incredible things you're going to do with your purpose. And we're not going to talk about it today because I don't want to, right? It's already kind of like longer than I like to go in these. I really kind of prefer to keep them 15, 20 minutes. But I want to drop that in here too, because I think it's something really powerful to think about, to gnaw on a little bit, is like, oh, sometimes our traumas are actually gigantic springboards for our lives and they propel us into something absolutely powerful because we had to learn to stand for something for ourselves. We had to protect ourselves. So somehow that's really important, right? Is like we can take a traumatic thing and actually take it and propel us. Had I not been traumatized at 17, I would not have worked with teens for 20 years. I will guarantee you. I would not have thought to necessarily advocate for teens. But because I had a very painful trauma, I knew the value of trying to work through hard things when you were a teenager. And so it made me a powerful advocate for teens. So those things actually propel us, they grow us. That 17-year-old that I'm carrying around with me with her hands on her hips and her finger in the air to the people that don't believe in her, because she protects herself, she has shown up more times in my life than I can count. I actually sometimes have to tell her, like I said earlier, to simmer down. So I've had to learn to like, okay, Hoss, settle down a little bit, right? Because she just gets all, like, hey. And so we actually can find that because of that resilience from living through trauma, it can actually really be a propel for us into the next thing. I can't tell you how many clients take their traumas and turn it into service. And so they had to live through something really freaking hard. And just talked to a woman the other day. She's like, yep. She's like, I lost everything in COVID. And through that, I decided to become a coach. There are no accidents. And so when we get in our heads, right, she could have been like, oh my God, and life sucks and this is breaking down. And blah, blah, blah. We can all do that. We can all do that. Okay. and it sucks and it's hard and it's, and those are all truths. Those are all truths, right? And look at what she did with that. Right? I get so excited when I hear those stories because those are purpose stories. I'm like, oh, look at that. Look at how you arrived exactly where you needed to be. You wouldn't have planned that. You wouldn't have asked for it. You wouldn't have asked for it. And instead of laying down and diving into what everyone else's expectations were, right, of her business ownership and where she came from, owning a restaurant, like, right? She's a coach now, breathwork coach. Like, what? The what? This is what I get excited about, is when I hear those stories, because I know it's painful to get there. But if I'm listening to everyone else's expectations and I go, oh, should I have to do what they think? The world will tell me just open up another restaurant. What? How do you go from being a restaurant owner to a breath coach? Well, she did. So this to me gets me excited, right? Because it's that thing about this is the whole lotus, right? This is the whole lotus idea. This is why I get excited about renewal and beginning again. Because in that moment, in a horrible loss, I mean, listening to her outline them actually made me do a podcast because I was so inspired by this story. Like, I feel like I need to make a podcast because her story is incredible. Horrible, incredible. And now look at what she's designed from that space. So she went down in that murky grossness of pain and loss, and she came out and look at what happened. That's the lotus. And so to me, that's really the heart and soul of what I love to see people do is take whatever tough shit you've got going on, wherever you've been, and turn that into something that's powerful, because somebody else needs your story. Nobody else on the planet has your story just the way it is. So it has to be told. And so for me, that's when I get excited about doing a podcast, because I'm like, someone needs to hear her story. Look at what she did. And people do it all the time. But she's living outside of everyone else's expectations. Because I'm sure she went to go do training to be a breathwork coach. People were like, what? You own restaurants. Weird. Right? And had she listened, had she not had that rebel soul, had she not been like, I'm not going to listen to that. I'm going to listen to what I know is in alignment for me, because that's bravery. That's the stuff that lights me up. I can't even handle myself. That's the kind of story that I'm like, I want everybody to hear, because I want us to hear how we can come back from something painful, how we rise up out of that space into something brand new and beautiful and pristine, and now have a renewed sense of purpose. Her purpose didn't necessarily change, but she changed lanes. Wink. That's what I love to do. So when I get stories about that, I get so like, oh, that's so awesome. So I can't wait to I'm doing a summit with her. So I'm super excited to get to know her a little bit better and hear more about her story. So I just want to drop that in with you all, right? So this is a big conversation. And like I said, one that I get super passionate about it, because when people step into this nature, that rebel soul, the spots where you'll show up, and I saw Mindy in here. Mindy works with kids, or has. And so like, to me, right, you have a passionate space where you want to protect and hold. And there's like, I will not just let somebody get in your face. I will not just let somebody interrupt your education or your mental wellness or whatever the heck it is that you're working in. You're like, hell to the no. That's one of your rebel soul spaces. And so almost all of us, I mean, I just find, and I love hearing people's spaces. That's why I'm like, put your spot. Where are you a rebel? Where are you like, you're not going to mess with this, because I will protect and I will step in and I will set a limit, even if it's unpopular or whatever, right? Even if I piss people off. And mine was client care. That's one of mine. So, right, teens, client care and teens, 2 spots, right? And so I want to say that I want you to think about, where are your spaces that you show up as a rebel? Where is your line in the sand that you're like, I'm so passionate, I'm so firm about this, that's a no. That's a hard no. And even if it's going against what everyone else expects, right? You're like, nope, that's not okay. So I would love to hear about that. So tell me about where your rebel soul shows up, and tell me if you have a story. I love stories. If you're willing to share a story, I always love that. But I want you to share where your rebel soul shows up. And I want to encourage you to reset in 2022, that eyes on the prize idea about where can I take and really use that rebel soul to create the most and highest good, because you have it in you so that you will carry that message onward. My trauma created a space where I would carry the message for other teenagers for 20 years. That is not an accident. So I really want to invite you into that, like to understand that you're being prompted. You're being given situations and lessons that you will then take with you, and you will dole that out to somebody else because somebody needs your story. Okay. Okay. Profound. Oh, that's a lot. Okay. So I could talk about it for an hour and a half. Okay. So I just want to drop that in here. One of my favorite talks ever. I'm not even kidding. I want you to be a rebel soul so profoundly that I just hope that I infused you with some good energy to go out and do this for yourself and whoever you're supposed to be protecting, whatever area you want to create change in, whether it's medicine and creating cures for things, whatever it is, right? Protecting animals, protecting humans. It's you got something in there. All of us have got something in there. Tell me about where your rebel soul shows up. So as we close quickly, am opening a membership. It is called the Rise Collective. It is open. We are officially launching on February 1st, which is next Tuesday, which means the backside of the website and my Meditation Liberate will all be open and accessible. There'll be some classes in there. So there's all sorts of stuff in that content that's available to you. And then you get 2 coaching sessions per month. So one is really meditation and healings based. The other is very personal growth and psychology based. And so you're going to have 2 at least live kind of situations in each and every month. So if you're interested, I would love to have you come and join us. Sorry, Mindy, I don't know what happened that you lost audio. That's weird. So I want to invite you into that. If you're interested, you can go to laughinglotuswellness.com/membership. And that is the spot that you can go learn a little bit more. I have a little video there. It is super reasonable per month. And what it's really doing is bringing women together with the glue of sort of meditation, I would say, and the desire to live purposeful lives. So it's like soul seekers and people who want to dive into their purpose. That's exactly what this membership is all about. And so I want to invite you to go check that out if you're interested. Right, again, laughinglotuswellness.com/membership, and you can go check it out. And so if you want to be there for the launch, there's still a little time. We're going to have a special event on the 1st celebrating the official launch. And then we're going to still have our 2 events in the month of February. So now is kind of like the juiciest time. I've got some discounts going on now. And as we get near, it actually gets less and less and less. So I would encourage you, if you're interested, tap in now so that you can go and sign in. I don't know. That's super weird. Facebook to you. Thank you, Sue. She said, hop into Facebook to hear her. I don't know why that's happening. I'm so sorry, friends. So if you would like to join, I would love to have you in that membership. If that's where you feel you are, you've done a lot of personal work, you feel ready to align with other women who are doing the same kind of work, you want to feel empowered and you want to grow, as well as make sure you're steeping yourself in terms of all the different healing modalities that I love to bring. We're going to be doing so many fun things in there. We've already done a game night. We did a live meditation last night. We've got yoga and movement breath work on Saturday morning before we even officially start. So there's some really neat bonuses that are coming in early. And that's why I'm telling you, I'm like, get in early, because the same things that are happening will not always be available. So again, laughinglotuswellness.com/membership. I've got some members in here. Just trust me when I say there's beautiful women that are already joining this and so excited to get rolling and grow themselves in their community. So I invite you in to join us for that as well. So until next time, my friends, this is Jen with Laughing Lotus Wellness, sending you blessings, love, and light. We will be back here next Thursday again. And I hope you'll come and join us for the launch and be part of our membership and how we're growing a beautiful community of women. So until next time, my friends, love and light. We'll see you then.